Hello and welcome to another episode of Service to Software, a Code Platoon podcast. For those of you who are new here, Code Platoon is a military community coding boot camp designed for military veterans, military spouse, and their dependents. We provide technical training in software engineering, DevOps, and AI cloud engineering to help our community transition into tech with confidence. I'm thrilled, as I always am, to introduce our guest. For today's session, I'm really excited to introduce Stephanie Holman. So a little quick background about Stephanie, and then I'll allow Stephanie to go in a little bit deeper into her background. She knows herself a little bit better than I do. Stephanie is an Army reservist, a former educational, is it success coordinator?
Yeah, work in higher ed, number of positions. That's just one of many.
All right. And now technical recruiter in a recruiting space, specifically geared towards the cleared space and government contracting. Is that correct?
It is, it is.
Awesome. So I always do a poor job at introducing people. I'd rather you talk about yourself. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, how you ended up in this space, and then we'll go into some questions.
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. Thank you. That was a great intro. I know how hard it is to do
You're
these.
being too kind. You're being way too
No,
kind,
no,
but go
no.
ahead.
You're good. You touched on the main pieces. I absolutely love what Code Platoon is doing, excuse me, especially as a military veteran myself. Really appreciate you all and setting this up and taking the time. It helps job seekers. For those that don't already know me, so I'm Steph Holman. Again, thanks for the intro, Rich. I am a technical recruiter in the cleared space. So that means I look for individuals that have some sort of IT, engineering, computer science background that have security clearances and want to support intel, defense, national security. So that is my main bread and butter. There's a lot of mystery around this space and a lot of information that people, job seekers, don't know. So we're going to get into some questions, today and hopefully help some folks out.
That's exactly why I wanted to talk to you because you work in this space, and as you said, there's a lot of misinformation or just information that people aren't aware of that they could be leveraging recruiters. In particular, those that don't know me, I'm the head of career services for Code Platoon, and so when students graduate our program, I help them when it comes to career readiness in terms of resume building, interview prepping, networking, and branding. And one thing I always say is leverage all the resources out there, and recruiters are one of those major resources. And so that's why you're here. My first question revolves around, okay, we should be talking to recruiters. How do I find the right recruiter for me?
Yeah, so that actually starts with you. I'm going to turn it back,
Oh,
right?
here we go.
On the
Yeah.
job seeker, we're going to flip this. You need to know what you're targeting, right? What's your industry? What type of role are you looking for? What type of companies are you looking for? If I were looking, what I would do is I would identify 3 to 5 companies, similar size, similar space, right? And then I'd identify the titles that I'm actually going for, right? If you're a SOC analyst, for example, right? You're going to pull those titles from different companies. Then what you can do, use social media, to your benefit. LinkedIn, a lot of recruiters are really active. The way that people search now is very different, right? From when I was younger and walking your resume in. We are on social media. So then what I would do is go to those company pages. There's actually a way where you can search for recruiters that are linked to those companies, right? Then go through, see how active those recruiters are. And if they're active, they have, positions that relate to what you're looking for. That's where you start, right? And you can start by sending messages out to those recruiters. Now, I'll add on here that not every recruiter is active, super active on LinkedIn. So again, that's why I'm saying go to the profile, see if they've recently posted, see if the roles align with what you're looking for. And when it comes to just general advice, right? On LinkedIn, there's an endless hole of advice across the board from recruiters, and it's not always going to be a one size fits all, right? So that's why following recruiters at your target company is so important. I can tell you about the company that I support, right? But having worked, for example, at Amazon Web Services prior to the company that I'm at now, all of my information from my time at AWS is now dated. I am no longer there, right? So you as a job seeker, you really have to evaluate and assess number one, am I following someone that can actually help me, right? That works at the target company that I want to get to, right? And then is that information, is it going to help you? Is it going to benefit you?
That's really good advice. I'm curious. Let's say that we follow the instructions you just gave. I think it was about 5 companies that you were really interested in.
Yep.
Identify what those recruiters are doing. Are they active, right? Let's say that they are active. They're
Mhm.
not always going to get back to you, right? So do I just stop there? Should I reach back out to them? Will I be annoying? How do I try to engage with them if they didn't get back to me the first time I reached out?
Yeah, let's start here. Get out of your head, right? Take all that stuff out of your head, expectations, send the message. Send the message. Now, will you always get a response? No, you won't, right? And so the reality is a lot of recruiters like myself, we are prioritizing a million things per day. And we also have a number of inboxes, right? I have 3 inboxes that I manage,
Really?
all at one time. So, uh, will your message be answered? It might be, right? But there could be a reason why it's not being answered. The recruiter might be on PTO. The recruiter might no longer be with that company. So I have to really stress this. Do not take it personally. Don't
Yes.
take it personally. And as you're sending these messages, if and when you do get a response back, note what worked, right? In my space, for example, I said in my intro, I'm with a government contracting company. I support IT roles, cleared positions, right? Defense, national security, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So again, that means I'm looking for people with a security clearance. So when someone reaches out to me and they say, "Hey, Steph, I have this kind of clearance. I'm looking for this kind of role. I've been to your website and I'm drawn to job, X, Y, and Z." Boom, I'm off to the races. I can help you very fast. But what I'm seeing is a lot of folks, they're um, they're jumping the gun, so to speak. They're sending out these AI generated messages, very generic, and it's usually kind of the same song and dance. "Hi, Stephanie, I see your background in blah blah blah. I'm so intrigued," and it tells me nothing.
Yeah.
And then I'm also looking at this massive message and going, "Okay, where are the pieces? I need to find the pieces so I can help you with what you're looking for." So back to what you're saying with outreach, experiment, right? If you're not getting replies, change your messaging up. And when you start getting replies, that's going to tell you, okay, this might be working, right? The recruiters, they're getting the information that they need.
So quick notes that I heard is
Hmm.
get out of your own head. We are our own worst enemies and
Yep.
send a message because you're definitely not going to get a response if you don't send the message.
Right.
2 is to do your research and come with a specific, not just ask, but being very clear on what you bring to the table and how you fit with a specific role. Don't let Stephanie have to do all the work on the back end. You're juggling a lot of different things, right? So if you're reaching out, hey, I looked at your page, I'm qualified for these 3 different roles, I have the background, I have the clearance, that makes it a lot easier for you, the recruiter, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think sometimes folks hear, well, making it easier for the recruiter, and they associate that with these recruiters are lazy, right? I thought it too at one point. And that's just not the case. Your goal as a job seeker, if you're reaching out and you want to get to the top of someone's inbox, that's your goal. Give them exactly, what it is you're looking for, that you've mentioned you've been to the website, if you've seen roles or you've even applied, throw that in there.
Thank you for that. Before we move on to the second question, would you say that it's really important to have a good rapport with your recruiter? Do you have to see eye to eye with your recruiter? Are you expecting people, do you meet with them on a regular basis? Like, how does that work? Is it kind of when I see an opportunity, I have your resume, I reach out, or is there a closer relationship with recruiter and job seeker?
Yeah, this is a really good one, and one I have not been asked on a podcast before. I love that you asked this. Your recruiter can be an advocate for you, right? And so that means right off the bat, going into a conversation with a recruiter, you want them to be able to advocate for you,
Yeah.
right? And so just being friendly, I think goes a really long way, right? Being able to communicate what you're looking for and what you're not looking for too. I always stress to folks, this is your life,
Yeah.
right? So when I reach out and I'm doing a screening and we very quickly at the beginning identify that there's some things that might not align, I let the folks I speak to know If there's something that doesn't, jive with what you're looking for, that's okay. I don't want you to be held hostage, but let's talk about what you are looking for, because when some positions inevitably open, which they do and they will, then I can get back in touch with you. So that's just a very quick example of how um, having a good relationship with a recruiter can really benefit you, right? So how do you do that though? This all sounds great in theory, but how do you do that in a very quick, a short time period? Again, I think it goes back to being self-aware and knowing going into that conversation, what you're looking for, right? Thanking the recruiter for their time, and then just mentioning really quick, hey, if you have any other roles like this, X, Y, and Z roles that pop up, please let me know. Hey, do you mind, Steph, if I reach out to you again in 30 days? No, I don't mind at all. I would love that because, again, positions, they come and go. Things very, very quickly shift.
Yeah.
So, and recruiters, I will say this, we remember professional, folks, people that just treat you with respect and, aren't rude or, mean or anything or condescending. I remember a lot of names going years back from just folks I've had good interactions with.
This is phenomenal information. And let's say that they don't end up working out, right? You don't place somebody, at least you built your network and they might be able to refer you if they don't have an opening, right? So this is really good. It kind of feeds into now tips from you as a recruiter. You know, every company now has an ATS, an applicant tracking system.
Mhm.
Pretty much gone are the days that you could walk into a business, go right to the manager, hand them a paper resume and handshake, and you get a job offer, right?
Right.
So, from the job seeker's standpoint, how do I ensure that I'm really standing out in that ATS? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to go backwards before I answer this.
Okay.
There was something you said that just kind of triggered me a little bit, not in a bad
Sure.
way. But a lot of folks, so as a job seeker, you don't see what I see as a recruiter, right? You don't see how many people make it on the first interview or don't. A good number of folks do not make it on the first interview, right? But they've kept in contact with the recruiter, they've kept in contact with the company, they've followed the page, and guess what? They interview again. And so they make it again on the second or the third try, right? So I don't want the listeners out there getting demotivated or not feeling good about it if they don't make it on the first try. A lot of people don't. So don't just think, okay, I didn't pass go this time. Now I'm dead to the company. No, you're not. And so relating to the ATS, if you've had a touch point with the recruiter and let them know on that screening call what else you're interested in. The ATS that I work with, for example, and I won't name drop them, but
Fine.
um, I have the ability to put follow-up notes in there. I have the ability to tag your account with other things that you're looking for. And all of that goes back to a future touch point, right? Again, is there something that we can find for you? The ATS, that's a big, big topic. So I'm just going to touch on a couple points that are really important here. A real person is looking at your resume. There's a lot of misinformation out there about ATSs rejecting you without someone getting eyes on your resume. So I want to clear that up because I know, I see you raising your hand. Go
I
ahead.
know for those, I'm raising my hand because I'm not challenging. I'm intrigued. So you're telling me, for the most part, people actually are looking at your resume in an ATS. I almost feel like it's filtered automatically, and then possibly somebody seeing it. You're opening my eyes.
Correct. And let's talk about that. So there's some
Please.
pieces of this. So number one, there's a lot of people that look the part, that talk the part, that walk the, do all that thing, um, that are selling misinformation. There's a lot of ads right now on Instagram, how to beat the ATS and all this stuff. A lot of people out there willing to take your hard-earned money. That's not how the ATS works, right? The ATS is literally a digital filing cabinet, right? Your resume comes into the company, and then someone like me is going to do two things, right? Before your resume hits my requisition, I can set what's called knockout questions, right? And this is something most companies can do across the board. So when you apply and there's a question that says, do you have 5 years of business management experience, right? And you select no. I can auto set the system to reject you because you don't meet the requirements, right? Now, I don't want someone to hear this and go, oh, well, then I should set yes to everything, right? Because now we're getting into like the integrity piece, and we can
Yeah.
talk about that a little more. But yeah, so a recruiter can set, excuse me, knockout questions. So I think this speaks to where sometimes applicants, they apply for a position and they get an auto rejection. And then they're like, no one even saw my resume. I got this auto rejection instantly, right? It's likely because there's some knockout questions that you were asked that you do not meet, right? You do not meet the experience required or the job skill set, right? So that's one example that kind of confuses people. But yes, the next thing, when a resume comes in, and say I didn't have knockout questions set, right? Then yeah, it's me. I'm looking at your resume and I'm assessing it to see if it meets enough of the job description to warrant a phone call.
Well, I'm curious, to be fair to you, the recruiter, I'm assuming you get hundreds, if not thousands of applications. There's no way you're reviewing every application if you didn't have a knockout round, right? So how, like, there's got to be something to save your own sanity, right? I would be doing the same. Is
Mhm.
so
Yeah, it depends, right? It depends. If it's an entry level or mid-level role, sure. There's going to be a lot of applications generally. If it's
yeah.
something more specialized or at the senior level, no, there's probably not going to be hundreds and hundreds, of applications.
Okay.
Yes, to your point, knockout questions are set to identify if someone meets like the basic criteria.
Yeah. I would think like an educational, like let's say it asks for a master's and you don't have a master's and you're applying. Well, that you obviously won't be looked at.
Right. Yeah. And that's where as an applicant, you've gotta have that internal dialogue with yourself. Like, do you really meet the majority of the qualifications or come close, right? Um, because there are other applicants who do.
Yeah.
And as a recruiter, you are truly looking for the best fit.
And I would think from a job seeker standpoint, and I know a lot of the spraying and praying model does happen, but that could really exhaust you mentally if you're constantly getting these rejections and then you're actually not getting anywhere with those applications. So really being true to yourself about, okay, do I qualify for these roles? Go ahead.
Right. And sorry, is that you know me, I can talk and talk. But so that's where again it goes back to, really if you can updating your resume, getting it as close to that job description as possible. I know tailoring your resume, it's time consuming. I know I've done it. It's frustrating. But one thing you can do is, again, if you're targeting 3 to 5 different companies, similar roles, right? Similar titles, pull those job descriptions.
Yeah.
Throw them into ChatGPT. The technology is there. Use what you have at your fingertips and ask ChatGPT, what are some common requirements between these 3 to 5 job descriptions? Then throw your resume in. See how close you meet it. It's going to very quickly tell you, one, where you need to update your resume, right?
Yeah.
If you have the experience, don't put something you don't have, on there, but it's also going to tell you what you need to work towards, right? Obvious gaps. If you don't have, experience with certain tools, right? Then now okay, you need to get that experience because multiple companies, same industries, multiple roles are requiring X, Y, and Z.
I love that you said that, and it sparked something separate. I
Mhm.
tell our students and graduates and my clients in career coaching that maybe if you're looking at a certain industry, taking those 5 job descriptions and using it as a benchmark for your standard draft resume, you know?
Yes.
So, and then you could always tweak it. So at least now, if you're going in the same industry, you're not recreating every bullet and things of that nature. You're plugging and playing maybe certain things that it may be missing. It helps you kind of go through a job description and setting a resume for each job.
Right on the money.
Woo, yes, I got the green light from Steph. All right, I know what I'm talking about then, at least for this.
We're getting
Uh,
dangerous. We're getting dangerous.
yeah. Let's see here. One of the other tips that I'd like to hear from you is the importance of a digital footprint and how it meshes with the applicant and their resume. Does it have to mirror exactly? What are we looking for? Are you going and looking at LinkedIn profiles?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say to use some caution, right, with your LinkedIn profile, your footprint, your posts, that sort of thing. But it's up to your discretion, right? We all have freedom of speech to a certain limit. Um, I think when it comes to LinkedIn, though, it showcases you as a professional, right?
Mhm.
And me as a recruiter, I cannot control who else views your profile out there. I can't control if my hiring manager views it or not, so just think about that, right? Is that a fair representation of you professionally? I've worked with hiring managers in the past that would also get in on the job search, right? And look for candidates, and and they'd send me behind the scenes like, "Hey, see if you can reach out to this person. I like their profile," right? And what they're talking about with their profile is someone's experience, right? Filled in on their LinkedIn profile. Now, not everyone's going to put like explicit detail on everything, especially in the space that we work in, but try to put enough, right, to give folks an idea of what position you're currently in, what do you do, make sure that that's filled out. Now, when it comes to your resume, yes, generally you do want it to match, right? LinkedIn profile, resume, have it match, because sometimes we do catch discrepancies, and that's just something we will ask about. Usually, though, it's just human error, right? A date is wrong, or maybe title.
Yeah.
Fill that in, because you never know who is cruising by with the hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of users that are on LinkedIn.
Another question that I didn't have listed, so I'm putting you on the spot, but
That's okay.
I think you could handle it.
Okay.
So is there a difference between a government contracting recruiter versus a non-government contracting recruiter? Are there things that you look for versus the other recruiters might not?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the biggest thing is the clearance, the security clearance. That's required for all of my positions. So again, it just kind of making this more general to your listeners. That goes back to the job description and the
Yeah.
importance of reading a job description, right? Most job descriptions, they're going to have must have requirements and nice to have requirements. Your must have requirements that are listed there, that's what the company's looking for. So it really is your cheat sheet. And I hate to say it, but I think when we get really motivated and we're applying, we're excited, you want to get your resume out there. A lot of folks are probably not fully reading the job
Yeah.
description. Again, I know that takes time. I know it takes time. It's frustrating, but there might be some critical pieces, like in my world, the security clearance that people are missing, right? Because they're kind of rushing through.
No, thank you for that. That's really helpful. Another question off of that for listeners. Let's say that they had a security clearance and they are interested in some opportunities. Is there wiggle room? Have you hired people with pending security clearances? How does that work?
Yeah, there might be. I would say that it always comes down to, we call it the customer, right? Um,
Hmm.
so whoever the government customer is supported, there's a lot of if, ands, or buts. But again, the job description is going to tell you those key pieces. So for example, I have roles that say active secret clearance required, right? It's that black and white. You must have an active secret clearance to apply. And then I have other job descriptions that say active secret clearance, or the or is the big word you really want to zone in on, or ability to obtain a
Hmm.
secret clearance. So that tells someone that's applying, oh, okay, I don't have to have a secret clearance right now. I just have to have the ability to obtain, and we'll take you through that process. So the wording matters on these job descriptions.
Makes sense. My last question around the question two that kicked us all off, tips around
Yeah.
a recruiter is, do you know how long certain security clearances last? Maybe somebody's like, I don't even know if I still have my security clearance. How do they find that out?
Yeah, I'm always hesitant to put out specifics there because it
Yeah.
changes.
Okay.
And so often, yeah, the timelines can vary. And then as far as if finding out the status of your clearance, go back to your FSO,
Hmm.
and that's your security officer that originally granted it, or the company, to see if you can get in contact with someone that can pull that information.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
The last question, it has a couple of different components, but it's around the first stage tech recruiting screening. So
Mhm.
majority of, I mean, there's a variety of different ways that employers have their interview process, but typically, outside of a coding or technical role, it's the recruiter screening. And
Right.
so, what happens during a typical recruiter screening, whether it be for a government contract role or not?
Yeah, so I want to talk about the why, right? Because I think that's a fair question that some folks have is like, well, why do I have to talk to this recruiter and get screened? Why can't just get me on the phone with the manager, you know?
Yeah.
And I get it. But so a recruiter is really they're a time saver, right? We're having that initial contact with you to see to hear more about your experience, what you're looking for, right? And then assess if you have some of these requirements for the position to ultimately be successful in it. But I want folks going into that call feeling empowered, right? This is your time to learn more about the company, about the role, to ask those questions that maybe you wouldn't want to ask the hiring manager, during an interview. So I really stress to folks to kind of look at the recruiter screening as an opportunity to get to more information for you to know, is this even something you want to interview for, right? Again, this
Yeah.
is your time, this is your life, right? So go into that prepared to ask the questions that you want. Sometimes people are intimidated about that, right? They might feel a little anxious. I certainly did, once upon a time. I think the more you do that, right, and you go in and you ask the questions that you really want to know, the better that you get at it, right? So, what am I talking about? Well, what are the hours? Where is the position located? What's the salary range? Is this going to work for you, right? You need to know all of that information right off the bat. So I would look at a recruiter screening as a casual conversation. But yes, it's your first touch point. You want to represent yourself, well, and then also go in armed with the information that the recruiter, they're going to ask you again about those must-haves that are listed on the job description, right? Also be forthcoming if you don't meet, one of the requirements. Say I'm asking you about tools, right?
Yep.
And you don't have that experience, be transparent about it. Be honest about it. And that's something we can talk through. You can also ask on that recruiter screening, is this something that could disqualify me, right? And that's going to tell you if it's something that you need to work towards.
Yeah.
Or a lot of companies, they have professional development programs, upskilling programs, and that's where the recruiter could tell you, like, hey, yeah, we have this upskilling program where we could fill in some gaps, right? So you're getting that information. And then if you move forward going into an interview, that's something I would tell the hiring managers, like, hey, yeah, I had a touch point with Steph. No, I don't have, experience in XYZ tool. Maybe I have something similar, but I also know you've got this great upskilling program. I'm excited about that, right? I'm motivated to go through that and potentially, get these skills that you need to be successful.
You've said so many great things that keep sparking thoughts because I love to talk as well. So
Yeah,
you're in good company. And for those of you that are just listening and can't see the video, I was like pointing and thumbs up. And the reason being is you made a comment around this is your time to ask those questions and understand. I always say to people, they're not interviewing you. Yes, they are, but you're also interviewing them. This has got to be a good fit for you, right? So I think it's really important to make sure that, yeah, you come prepared and you have those questions to understand, now that's not going to work for me. And so that hopefully alleviates a little bit of the pressure that it's not all on you to have all the right answers. They better have the right answers as well. So that's,
absolutely. I'm going to tell you something, Rich, because I know what a privileged position I'm in. A recruiter position is a position of trust, right? I talk to a
mm,
lot of people at a lot of different levels. And I'm going to tell you right now, my senior level folks, these are folks that have 10, 15, sometimes 20 years of experience. They come straight into these recruiter screenings. They know exactly what they're after. They ask sharp questions, right? They respect my time, but they respect their time more. So again, the more comfortable you get with that, I'm not saying to be arrogant, offensive, abrasive. No, 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 no. But it's very clear when I'm speaking to someone, they've got a lot of experience, they're confident going into those calls, and they say, hey, this is important to me, right? Can you answer X, Y, and Z? Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. But that's a big difference I notice between my junior mid-level folks and my senior folks.
You also said something that was really, I love that you said it. You said you want to be honest and transparent if you don't have something. And then I don't know if the listeners caught it, but you said maybe you have something that's comparable. And I think that that is key. You want to be honest that, yeah, I don't have this, but what I do have, I might not have this technology, but I work with this technology that is a comparable here, here, and here. So you need to draw the map and draw the dots, make that connection for the listener, the recruiter, so that they realize, yeah, I don't have that specific tool, but I have things that are comparable. So I
Yeah,
love.
absolutely. And one thing as well that's I know is really frustrating. It was frustrating for me when I was applying and going through interviews. A lot of companies will not give feedback after an interview. Why? Liability reasons. No one wants to get sued. That's just what it
Yeah.
comes down to, right? So how do you know where to improve, right? Well, you don't. But this goes back to the recruiter screening. When you're in that call, you can ask the recruiter, is there anything, areas of concern that might prevent me from moving forward, right? You haven't interviewed yet, right? So this is just feedback from the recruiter. Again, the recruiters work very closely with their hiring teams, and I've had to have those conversations to say, I'm not sure that the team's going to want to move forward because you don't meet X, Y, and Z, requirement. We'll see, right? But again, this is data that you can then take and do something with. Okay,
Yeah,
you don't have these tools. Great, work towards them.
that's really insightful. Staying on this portion of the question, there's little components of each. So what type of questions should people expect? I know it could change, but what are the standard questions? Maybe two top three questions that in a first stage recruiter interview they might hear.
Yeah, and one of the questions, it might not even be related to like your experience, but most recruiters open with like, just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Uh, and we're really asking like, what are you looking for? What kind of company do you want to work for? What kind of environment, do you want to be in? What type of roles are you looking for? I think sometimes we maybe simplify the answer to that question a little bit too much. We have like some parroted response in our head of how to just answer that question to get, through it. But really slow down and think about, yeah, what am I looking for, right? Because you don't know all the roles that the recruiter might support. You don't know, the recruiters might have other recruiters on their team that support additional positions. So that's one question most recruiters will ask. Again, just tell me a little bit about yourself. What are you looking for, right? Next.
Yep.
And then another question, of course, will be experience related, and that can vary. So be prepared to talk a little bit about, your current position, what it is that you do. Maybe add in something like, what do you enjoy, right, about it? What's something that you've learned from it as well, and then just again going back to like what you're looking for in the future with this new potential company.
And as you mentioned, the job description, even at this stage, is your best friend, right? So they probably have a checkbox item of things that they have to hit to make sure that you are qualified. But
Absolutely.
and leveraging that job description will help fine tune your message so it's speaking to the needs of the company. Um,
Right. And those the screening questions, they're built off of the requirements of the position, and those are preset. So as an applicant, I want you to know, like when I'm screening multiple people, they're being asked the same questions, right? The goalpost doesn't move per candidate. I have, let's say, 10 questions that I'm going to ask related directly to the job description and what the requirements are.
Thank you. Interesting. And that's helpful. I'm glad the listeners heard that. Take some notes, people. The last question I have for you is okay, so in this screening, you have the 10 set questions. How does somebody stand above others? How do they stand out? How can they make a difference? How can they move the goalpost moving forward?
Yeah, so I get this question all the time, and it just, there's some things that are within our control, and there's some things that aren't, right? Your simplest way to stand out is to meet the job requirements.
Oh, that's a boring answer. Come on.
I know, it's a boring answer, but okay, you want to add a little sprinkle to it. It just be professional, right? Be
Yeah.
professional, be cordial, and try to have a good rapport with the recruiter. I always think a follow-up, message is good. You don't have to do that. But again, a follow-up message afterwards or later on, if you don't move forward, maybe a month later, if you remember to do it or save that, recruiter's contact information, it just puts you in their mind again for
Yeah.
future opportunities. So there's nothing, over the top that you need to do to stand out. I think between just meeting the job description and just being professional during the interaction, I mean, that's really it.
Hey, I was kidding about being boring with the response. It's the reality, right? You got to meet the requirements, be
You do.
professional, and just tell your story. I'm curious, two things. One, you mentioned the follow-up thank you. I encourage everybody to do that. It can that be annoying to a recruiter or no?
Well, I think, that's a fair point. It just depends. It depends
Yeah.
on the individual. I don't expect it after everyone and after every screening. And I'm not telling anyone to do that after every screening, but just think kind of strategically, right? Again, if you don't move forward in the process or you don't move forward after an interview, just it kind of keeps you in that recruiter or hiring manager's mind to send that, right? That you're still interested in getting to the company.
One thought I had, and I'd love your input here, is I think one way I think you might be able to stand out is asking really thoughtful questions and not the basic, um, what is the attire? What are the hours? Would you agree or disagree that some thoughtful questions could possibly move you as long as you qualify for the role and you still
Yeah, just generally speaking. So I would never, I have to be careful with questions like this because I would never disqualify someone because they haven't asked any questions or I thought the questions weren't thoughtful. Let's just be clear there. I would
okay,
never disqualify
fair.
someone for that. But to your point, I think if you do ask some interesting questions, that just shows your level of interest, right, in the company. So yeah, hypothetically, could it work to your advantage? Sure.
No, this is that makes sense, and I hear you. So first off, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for running through these questions. Is there something that I missed that you wanted to mention?
No, I mean you just covered it all again. I just thank you for doing this. I think it's a tough time. Market's tough. A lot of people are frustrated. They're spending so much time tailoring their resumes, sending out applications, and it's brutal. It really can get bring you down, right? So just for you, your listeners, that self-care piece is huge. You're valuable. You're
Yes.
gonna find your fit somewhere. It only takes one yes. And a lot of times, it's not the smartest person that gets across, the finish line. It's the one that stayed in the game and was motivated. Again, you all do not see what I see. You don't see
Yeah.
the folks that have applied repeatedly, not made it, not made it, not made it, and then they make it, and then they make it. But they would have never made it had they got out of the game early, right? And thinking like, that's it, it's over for me. It's not over for you.
I love that you said that because times are tough and it's definitely kind of beats you down mentally when you get all these rejections. One that kind of speaks to the volume of having somebody in your corner like a recruiter, right? Like a Steph.
Mhm, mhm.
And then also ensuring that you are tailoring your resume and you are applying to the right roles. And you made another comment about just because you get a no doesn't mean that you're not qualified, right? It doesn't mean that you didn't have the skill set. They went with somebody else, right? And so
Yeah, yeah, and it could even be more simple than that. It could just be someone was further in the process. That's it. They were just further in the process. They beat you to the finish line. And so you really didn't get a chance, to interview or be evaluated. It yeah, it's not again, it's not always personal.
yeah, I love that. Hey, Stephanie, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, let's say they're like, hey, I have a clearance, I have this skill set, I noticed some jobs that I might need some help with. How can they get a hold of you? I know that you work for a specific company, so maybe they could outreach and ask some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. If you just go to LinkedIn and you type in Stephanie Holman, my last name is Holman, and you put in tech recruiter, I will pop right up.
She
Um,
will definitely pop up.
yeah. So feel free, hit me up in the DMs. I do a lot of general posts just to help job seekers out because I know it's tough. I've been there. Again, you will find your place. Just keep going.
Stephanie, you are a leader in the space. We loved having you. Let's keep this conversation going off the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich.
See ya.